Thank you, Martin. That was lovely. So we've been singing songs and we've been listening to readings that helps to remind ourselves what Christmas and actually other spiritual times, other religious, inverted commas, ceremonies are really, truly about. It's peace, it's love, it's understanding, tolerance and harmony. They're all important themes. And the willingness to help others less fortunate than ourselves. There's the active part of the spiritual life as well as the introspective. So we have the introspective in a sense with meditation and retreats and contemplation, and they're all really important in your lives. And then there's the active, what do you do with the energy that you're given, you're blessed with? What do you do in your life and in the world you live in? And we're obviously here today for many and varied reasons, all of us. But probably one of the main reasons is that you're seeking the spiritual essence within you and around you. God is truly everywhere and in everything. And God is in every person, however locked away that might be. So if God really is present, people often ask, why is there so much trouble and strife and hardship in life? I mean, even all of you, lovely people, hardship comes along for often no apparent reason. But also, why does there seem so much selfishness in the world? Less giving, less understanding. Where's God when we're ill, unhappy and bereaved? Where's God when there's people hungry and destitute and suffering? But when we answer that, we remind ourselves of the fact that God, being everywhere, is therefore also very much within us, obviously to greater or lesser degrees. And Jesus and the prophets, obviously, and all the masters had God fully within them. And in aligning themselves to the will and the love of God, there was great things that they were able to achieve. Huge numbers of people they could help. But then again, they also suffered. So aligning ourselves to God doesn't stop hardship and suffering. It does make it an awful lot easier. And that's important to remember. So when we look at all the misfortune and difficulties in the world, we're looking in a way at a disconnection from God, because the suffering that people experience and the suffering the masters experience is related to the energy that we as humankind create in this world that we live in. So we need to obviously collect more and more to that source of love and light into the world. So like a tipping point, the more people who come from that point of peace and stillness and harmony create an effect on those around them. And then those people can create an effect on others around them. So we all have a very important positive role to play in life. You cannot be passive about it. As the saying says, you cannot hide your light under the bushel. God gives you things and expects you to use them, not to hoard them to yourself. So your love and your peace and your harmony, share them. Your happiness, share them. So the question is, when people go and mention about the suffering in the world, and particularly if they connect it to God, the question really is, well, what are we doing to make the world a better place for those around us, because God has given us hands, speech, energy. What are we doing to do anything to help it? And we can make a difference. But often the difference is not so much a great leap in activity or in life, although those moments come for some people. But for most of us, the difference we make is small and continuous steps. So every day we can make a positive difference, or we can choose a negative one. Your day is full of crossroads. You come to the little road, something happens, do you embrace it and deal with it positively, or do you get in a mood and deal with it negatively? Each crossroads has an effect on you and those around you, and then on the bigger effect on the wider environment we live in. So if everybody in the world decided to be miserable, by golly, what a place it would be. But then if we turn it around and think, if everybody decided to be happy, okay, wouldn't that be great? And they say, oh yeah, but I can't be happy because of this or that. But you know that there's people in your life who seem to be happy regardless of what seems to befall them. And other people, bless them, who aren't really happy unless they're unhappy. So we do make an inner choice. And we can choose to be happy and positive. But we've got to choose it. To see, if we think that we are some sort of pawn in life and we don't have a choice and life just moves us around, then we might just as well stay in bed all day. Okay? But actually we're not. We're more the big players in life. We can make a difference. We can choose to get out there and do something positive. We don't need to be blown around by the wind. So we make a choice every time. Now the important thing to remember is, don't, for want of a better expression, beat yourself up when you make the wrong choice. Just pick yourself up and have another go at it. Because the thing is, we've all, where we are today, have our moments. We have our trigger points. And when you have your trigger point, the thing to do is to try and take yourself out of the environment, if you can, that's causing you the problem, so you can get yourself reconnected. And this is where your meditation comes in. If you can meditate twice a day, you're connecting to that energy, so you're more able to help others and deal with the difficulties of life as they come along. It's all about motive and intent. That's the key. Doesn't matter if you don't always make it, but if your motive and intent is to do so, it will cancel out the not so good moments when your fears and your insecurities make you grumpy, perhaps a little bit rude at times, a bit angry, intolerant of others. Okay? But your general impression is to try and be helpful. And you see, if you have sunburn, you'd be silly to go out in the sun, wouldn't you? You look after yourself, you stay indoors. In the same way, if you're feeling touchy and sensitive, try and avoid the situations and people that would rub up against you until you feel more ready to deal with it. And you can say, quite rightly, well, it's all very well for him to say that, but I've got to go to work. I've got to do this. I've got to do the other. So, and that's so true. But when you get to work, you can still work at just getting on with your own thing as much as you can. Don't get involved with anything more than you need to. Now, if someone is determined, and it does happen, of course, in life, to make your life difficult, then you just have to deal with that as best you can. Life is full of challenges, but whether we look at them positively or negatively is also still a choice. And it's not about blame, where is the other person coming from? We're all sons and daughters of God, and we all have a loving spiritual core, but obviously we're hugely affected by our upbringing, the events in our life, our environment. And often that difficult person in your life, that rude, demanding person, is struggling with fears, insecurities, past traumas, even perhaps an illness. And how you respond to them can not only be helpful to you, can be really helpful to them. So if you see yourself as the victim, you can't help them and you can't help yourself. But if you change it around and don't take it personally, then you can help them. You can look them in the eye and the love can flow. And you'd be surprised how much that can change things. And that's important, to not take other people's supposed issues with you too personally, because often it's about them. In the same way that your issues with people might well be about you, of course. So that's worth bearing in mind, isn't it? And the other thing we seem to be hearing a lot at the moment is what's going wrong with the world. I don't know if you've been hearing that, but it does seem to be very much in people's minds. Something seems to have tipped and people are very worried about things. But in a way, has it been any different since year dot? I mean, in the last century, there was one war they were worrying about, and then another war. That's a pretty big worry. And then there's the danger and worry of nuclear Armageddon. That's a pretty big worry. And here we are today with our worries. But if we go all the way back to Jesus' time, they were so worried about the state of the world, they were praying for Messiah to come and rule them in perfect harmony. So nothing's really changed. And if we focus a little bit too much on the problems of the world, then we're tying in and buying into the negative energy. And it builds and it creates more of a negative energy. I mean, it's true to say that the stakes are maybe high at the moment with global warming. But you can't impose harmony. So that's why there was never going to be a Messiah who was going to come and rule the world, because you can't impose peace. You can't impose love. You can just stimulate it by your example, as you can stimulate it by your example. I know that people are concerned because people in positions of responsibility and power aren't acting with integrity, and it all trickles down. But we can act with integrity, so we don't have to expect other people to do anything. We can do it ourselves and let it trickle up. And that's important to remember, okay? Things can go trickling up as well as trickling down. And selfish and vested interest is nothing new in the world. And as to the polarisation of views that seems to be going on, well, that's where we can come in and find the middle way and encourage people to agree to differ, which is a vital and a very important spiritual quality. So what to do? Well, first we may want to consider the prayer that's often attributed to St. Francis of Assisi and others, but it actually comes from the American theologian, gentleman called Reinhard Niebuhr. The theme's clearly been around for a long time, but the prayer encapsulates everything so nicely and it's so widely used. So I'm going to repeat it again today, because it's really important for us to follow the principles. So the prayer is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And if we take that to heart and practice it, it does make a big difference in our lives. But actually there's more to the prayer than's often quoted. So I'm going to read also the rest of it. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Well, I'm not keen on the sinful world part of it, but I know what they mean. And I think we don't just have to go for being reasonably happy in this life. We can go for being supremely happy. We don't have to wait till we move on. So obviously, though, it's written from an Orthodox Christian point of view, but it runs like a continuous thread through all religions and beliefs. Namely, do what we can in life, align ourselves to God, and leave the rest to God. But there's an important other principle. There's an old Arabic saying that I really like. It's the one, trust in God and tie up your camel. Right? So, God will help us individually and collectively, but not by forcing change, but by working for us as individuals. And as individuals and collectively, we can be a force for change. For every positive thought and action makes a change in that collective consciousness of life. So it's really very true to say another oft-quoted statement, but not always practiced. The best way to change the world is to change yourself. So let's do this Christmas. Let's embrace that love, light, joy and peace, and be that beacon of light in this world. So may it be. Thank you.